You don't want to get divorced now, do you? You wouldn't know what to do without me. A stupid part-timer like you can't possibly even make any living at all. You'd be on your own. And what exactly do you expect to do if you go through with this? Just what I thought. Nothing. You're so stupid it's actually adorable. My darling, I can imagine you on your knees, begging for my forgiveness. I'm looking forward to coming home tonight, darling. I'll tell you that much.
My name is Mia. I'm 60 years old, and I'm a housewife. I've been married to my husband, Derek, for 35 years. He and I have worked for the same company a lifetime ago, and after a wonderful in-house romance, we got married. Derek is a proud man, and he has a stubborn side, where he simply cannot accept that he's inferior in some way compared to other people. Or perhaps he does know, but refuses to acknowledge it in front of others. But I respected him for who he is all that time ago, and that's one of the multiple reasons I married him. Some of my colleagues were actually against the idea of me marrying him, but I didn't pay much heed to what they thought, and decided to marry Derek because he was the only one for me. After that, we were blessed with a few children, and our family life couldn't have been any happier. When I had a child, he asked me if I could resign from my job and stay at home to take care of the kids and the house. I loved my job, so I felt a bit of resistance towards the concept of quitting my job. But one cannot be selfish when thinking about their family's future, and rationally, staying at home seemed to be the best thing to do, especially considering our children. So, after a short while, I quit my job and became a housewife. Because of this, I was able to watch my children grow up, and I was grateful to Derek for giving me such a precious opportunity. I have 2 sons, named Jared and Sky, and they are 1 year apart from each other. It only seems like yesterday when I beheld them both as but tiny babies, the most beautiful in the world. But now, both of them are all grown up. Both of them now work outside the region. Jared as a hardware engineer, Sky as a chef. Now that both of them spread their wings and left home, I was left alone with my own time, and I had way too much free time. I thought about finding some new hobbies, but I've always been clumsy with my hands. I'm too lazy to play sports. Then, I thought about applying for a part-time job. I remembered how much I like to work, and I began to think that a part-time job would be awesome, assuming Derek let me. I talked to him about it, and his response was,
I mean, by all means, go for it. But I have to warn you, if I find you neglecting the housework, I'll have you quit right away.
I'll do my best to make it work both ways, honey. My husband agreed to the idea. I've decided to take a part-time job at a supermarket as I continued on with the housework. It was hard at first, but as I got used to it, I was able to balance out the job and the housework pretty well. I was very satisfied with my first job in a long time. My life up until then had been wonderful, make no mistake, but as my expertise in my part-time job improved, I found that I was able to make better use of my time, and that filled me with a strong sense of satisfying accomplishment. But then, my husband's mood started to get worse with every passing day.
Goddamn prick. I'm so damn tired. Why the hell do I have to work for him of all frickin' people?
Anything wrong, honey?
You won't know what I'm talking about. Remember, I'm a full-time employee. You're a part-timer. Also known as someone who doesn't understand what real work is.
My husband is 58. Considering his personality, I always suppose seeing his peers and subordinates get promoted and accomplish more than him must be frustrating. My husband is a section chief, but at his age, he could have been a chief of department or sub-department, and yet, he still can't get ahead. I was sure there was a problem with his work that was underlying cause for the situation, but his pride forbade any rational thinking and always blamed it all on others, without others. When it was time for the company to announce who was going to be promoted, he complained every single time. Apparently, there's a young man about the same age as my firstborn who already has a higher position than him, but in a different department. According to one of his colleagues with whom I got acquainted always called Derek the eternal section chief, and I was sure my husband was aware of his admittedly befitting, albeit a little cruel nickname. Derek used to mutter angrily under his breath,
Youngsters these days only know how to make fun of other people, damn it. They're frickin' useless with literally everything else.
All I could ever do as he said these things was listen, and answer with nods and the countless utterance of the words, "Yes, honey." I'm sure he absolutely resented seeing people around him live more alive and happier than he, his wife, and children included. I don't think he could ever forgive anyone whose life is better than his. After a while, I've been able to establish quite a good reputation at my job, and I was really enjoying my life. It became so nice that I just had to tell both of my sons about it all, both of whom, let me remind you, were outside of my region. My two darlings seemed relieved to see me satisfied with my life. In retrospect, perhaps they were worried that living alone with their overbearing father would cause me some stress. I'm so glad that both of them grew up to be such kind angels, and I couldn't be more proud of them. Then, one day, one of the other part-timers at my job suddenly had to take a day off. I volunteered to fill in for them, and I went off to work on Derek's day off. Work was great as usual. When I came home, however...
I thought I told you not to slack off on the housework.
I'm sorry, honey.
'Cause of you, I missed lunch, damn it. I'm sorry is not gonna compensate for this. How could you do this?
You had, like, a cup of noodles or something in the cupboard, didn't you? You could have just eaten that.
You could have made lunch, is what I'm saying, damn it. You're supposed to frickin' sneak out during your lunch break, or whatever. Come home and cook me lunch, huh? That's normal.
No, that's crazy. There's no way I could do that.
You're a part-timer. You're supposed to be flexible. Part-timers have no responsibilities, and the only requirement is for you to just be there.
That may be true, but...
No one expects you to do anything worthwhile. You're just there to be there, end of frickin' story. That means that you neglected your own husband because you never came back home to cook for him.
How could you say that?
Take a look at me. I'm a full-time employee, and I even have a title. I have a whole different sense of responsibility. Now, let's take a look at you. In your case, I don't even know if I'd call it a job.
You don't have to say it that way. You make it sound like my existence is meaningless.
Aren't you forgetting something?
What?
We made a deal. If you didn't do the housework to my satisfaction, I'm gonna have to tell you to stop working that stupid job of yours.
I know. I'll make dinner now, so wait a bit, okay?
Of course you're gonna cook dinner, damn it. I didn't have frickin' lunch today, so you better make it something respectable.
All right. Was my husband making fun of my part-time job? I was beginning to think he was. I couldn't help but hate him for that little demonstration of inexcusable behavior. And not too long after that, my hard work at my part-time job paid off, and I eventually became in charge of the store itself. I'm motivated because I'm also in charge of making the shifts for everyone working at the supermarket. But even if I told my husband that, he'd still tell me that I'm only a part-timer, nothing at all like the full-time work he does every single day. He looks down on me. He condescends to me, even though we are husband and wife. I slowly became worried he didn't know what love was anymore. He never showed that part of himself leading up to when we got married. That's why I decided to marry him. He seemed a respectable person, but now, of all times, I can understand why some of my old colleagues were against it. Every day after that, Derek came home frustrated. Although my own life was awesome, seeing him like that was not a very pleasant thing to see, and it eventually became a bit of a disappointment whenever I had to go home. One day, I got a call from the aforementioned colleague who came up with Derek's nickname. By the way, this colleague was there when I was still working for that company, and she had always been a good friend of ours. She asked me if I could spare a few minutes because she had something she wanted to talk about. I had an upcoming day off from my part-time job, and we decided to have lunch together. Hey, how's Derek these days? Is it all right at home? Same old, his usual self. I think I told you this before, but I guess he's kind of a tight-ass husband. Yeah, I guess he is. You started a part-time job, didn't you? Yeah, I did. How do you know about that? Derek's been making fun of your part-time job to his juniors and colleagues. He says you claim you're working a job when you're really not, and that you can't even do the housework properly. He even goes so far as to say you're not a good housewife, and that's not the worst part. He says that's all fine and dandy with him, but being married to someone like that will never allow him the opportunity to get ahead in life. What the hell is his problem? He's always been like that. You know that more than anyone. Nowadays, people in general don't take a liking to folks like that anymore. That's true. That's why he's become pretty isolated in the office. Everyone in the office knows full well how much of a good job you've done as a housewife, and they damn well believe you're excelling at your new part-time job. That's so sweet of you. Thank you so much. But if he keeps it at it like that, his isolation in the company is going to become all the more complete. I was sure my colleague was telling me all of this for my husband's sake. I really appreciate it, Carrie. I had a hunch he was making fun of me behind my back, sometime, somewhere, but I never assumed he would want to bother his colleagues at work with nonsense like this. It's not something to talk about with them in the workplace. My husband's short fuse was the sole cause for his becoming increasingly isolated at the office. I didn't want him to cause any more trouble to anyone. That led me to a decision. When my husband would come home that night, I was going to talk to him, ask him if he really did do these things, and confirm it's the truth. Hey, so I just happened to overhear today you're talking smack about me behind my back. Is it true?
And so what if it's true?
I don't think it's good for anyone to hear their boss complain about their family all the time. I don't want to make other people uncomfortable and worried, you see. I think it's better not to say too much.
Looky who's talking. Little Miss Goody Two-Shoes Know-It-All. What the hell would you know about what my job's like? You just want to tell me that I keep on talking shit about you. You'll lose your position at your job. That's all you want. You're so frickin' selfish.
I'm not worried about me. Talk shit about me all you want. I don't care. I just think there are people out there who would rather not hear about that load of negativity. I only think you shouldn't bother them anymore.
Holy shit, you've become so cocky since you started working that slave labor, huh? You started working part-time. So what? Doesn't prove a goddamn thing. You know what? Frick you and your precious existence.
Derek suddenly stood up and brushed everything that was on the table on the floor. And then he proceeded to kick the table, smash the chairs, and wreak havoc inside the house. When I saw the way he handled my suggestions, I quickly felt a great sense of fear. I realized that upsetting him would lead to drastic consequences. I started a new life, a life in fear of my own husband, every single day. Perhaps such a life tired me out quite substantially. I began to feel a little under the weather. Even at work, I got headaches if I stayed standing for too long, leading me to need to sit down. And one day, because of such a life, I collapsed during work. I was rushed to the hospital via ambulance, and according to the doctors, it was because I was overworked. They told me I had both physical and mental stress, and asked if I had any idea what could be the cause of this stress. I was certain it was all because of my husband, but for some reason, I couldn't say so. I just told them that maybe I was just tired from work, and then I laid down on the hospital bed and drifted off to sleep. Evening fell, and I woke up to find Derek waiting beside the bed. I'm sorry, honey. I'm not feeling well.
We're going home, now.
Doctors told me to rest at the hospital today.
You sick or something?
No, I'm just overworked.
We're going home. Freaking part-timer. So damn funny. Overworked in a part-time job. That's hilarious.
It's not... Anyway, I'm gonna stay in the hospital today. Take care of the house for me, okay?
But that's not what you promised me. You promised to take care of the house and your stupid job. That was the deal.
But take a good look at my situation. Do you really think that's possible today? I'm sorry, honey, but it's not possible. That's what I told him, and he never spoke another word. He just rose, strode over to the door, and closed it with a deliberately loud slam. It was a big room, but since I was the only one there that day, I was glad no one saw that. But it's times like this that render me so embarrassed. The fact he really can't see anything or anyone around himself, it's downright shameful. That day, I was admitted to the hospital and was discharged the next. When I returned home, I found divorce papers on the table, with my husband's section already filled out. I took one look at the divorce documents, and a tsunami of release washed over me. I could finally leave that wretched fiend, and then I got a call from him.
Seen the table yet? You don't want to get divorced now, do you?
I do, actually. Let's get a divorce.
What are you talking about, part-timer? You think you can support yourself financially with that job of yours? You wouldn't know what to do without me. A stupid part-timer like you can't possibly even make a living at all. You'd be on your own, and what exactly do you expect to do if you go through with this? Just what I thought. Nothing. You're so stupid it's actually, well, adorable. My darling, I can imagine you on your knees, begging for my forgiveness. I'm looking forward to coming home tonight, darling. I'll tell you that much.
That's my husband for you. And he was chastising me to the point of no return. I signed the divorce documents he prepared for me with a smile on my face, and then I packed all my belongings into a carry-on suitcase and left the house. Evening fell, and I got another call from my now ex-husband.
Hey, your stuff's not here, and the divorce papers are gone too. What the hell are you playing at?
I told you I wanted to get a divorce, didn't I? As soon as I heard from you, I enthusiastically signed the divorce documents and submitted them to City Hall. You'd laid everything out so perfectly for me. Thanks to you, the submission was accepted without any problems. Thank you.
What the frick are you talking about? You don't want to divorce me. Your life's only going to get miserable and poor.
You've got it all wrong, my dear. Such a life will never happen. Not by a long shot.
You really think you can live on your own just by working part-time? You really don't know anything about society, and you underestimate it so much it's disgusting.
It's not a part-time anymore.
Yeah. You mean you quit your job? Then you're even more of a frickin' joke.
I'm going full-time.
What?
Actually, even before I fell ill, there was a talk of me getting a full-time job. Because of my age, and since you can't change that nor defy it, I was hired as a senior. But I was given the position of area manager at headquarters. Our old area manager was retiring from the company, so I was officially recognized as their successor. In our area, the store managers were often around my age, and the people who worked in these places were also of a relatively older age. Coupled with the fact that I would know how they feel about the workplace and the contents of their work, it could also be considered great motivation for women who had been housewives for a better part of their lives. I was too, after all, and hard work and persistence paid off. Above all else, they told me I deserved the position because I was just good at my job. It was a speedy rise to the top. Originally, when I was still working for the same company as Derek, there was talk of me becoming section chief. Then, my husband found out about it and told me to quit the company. His pride wouldn't allow his wife to be a higher position than him. I told my children about it too. Headquarters were actually where Sky lives, so it was pretty convenient to be honest.
So the bugger knows about it all too, doesn't he?
Don't you dare talk shit about my son. Sky was the one who suggested we get divorced, and Jared provided me with much needed mental support. Both are very happy with the decision. Sky was actually going to let me stay at his place, and that's what I've been prepping to do. And lo and behold, you left the divorce documents at exactly the right time. I'm so grateful to you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Don't frick with me. You were contracted to do my chores.
Contracted? My dear, I believe I hear a screw getting loose in that noggin of yours. What are you talking about? We were a married couple, and we were supposed to be on equal footing. You always look down on people, but you're the one whom people look down on because of their hatred for what you do.
What the frick is the matter with you? You're really pissing me the frick off.
I took this opportunity to spill everything I've been feeling up until then. I talked to someone at your company. They graciously told me you're really not good at your simple job, and that's precisely why you can never become more than a mere section chief. Some even wonder why you have that position at all. They were sure they must have given you some kind of position only because of your age.
You bitch.
And yet, you can still talk shit about all kinds of people. You're a laughingstock. You don't know anything about yourself, do you? I can't be around people like you anymore. By all means, spend the rest of your life blaming everyone else for your mistakes. See if I give a good goddamn.
You got to be kidding me. What am I supposed to do now?
I ignored my husband's yelling, and I hung up the phone. He then called me again and again, but I ignored him completely. And then, he told everyone at work that he divorced me. The truth was that I divorced him, but let's be honest, he's always right about everything. And indeed, he made it sound like it was all my fault. His colleagues thought it was impossible that I would do such a thing, and they didn't listen to my husband's story whatsoever. Because of that, Derek completely fell out of favor at work. Perhaps he finally realized what was happening, because since then, he wasn't able to wield as much power as he used to, and his superiors found out he couldn't do his job properly. He couldn't even land a contract with a potential business partner, and his demotion became official soon thereafter. I guess the nickname Eternal Section Chief fell off deaf ears, as he was no longer a manager of the year. He had to hand over the job to an employee younger than my second-born son. Of course, Derek's pride would have none of this bullshit, and he left the company voluntarily. At the age of 58, it was difficult to find a new job. If you could do the work well at your old job, then I don't think you would have a hard time. But when it came to Derek, who was merely a section chief for more years than one could care to admit, he just couldn't find a job. No one wanted to hire a man near retirement whose greatest accomplishment was successfully creating a table of a week's sales on Microsoft Excel. So, as of now, he's actually working part-time, which he used to make fun of. Oh, the irony makes it all so hilarious. I do hope he's finally learned what happens when you make fun of people, never try to acknowledge your own faults, and never endeavor to make any changes to any of those faults. Both Jared and Sky told me that they once got a call from their father, asking for support, but they told me they'd fought him off, and after that, they never heard from him again. As for me, I joined headquarters as an officially recognized full-time employee. I didn't think I'd have a full-time job at my age, so I will admit I'm a bit discombobulated. I do know one thing. I will do my absolute best for the company. My sons are also supporting me, and using that as my motivation. My next goal is to become a super senior employee, and make supermarkets a place to satisfy customers, as well as improve the lives of those who work for them. Wish me luck.